Have you ever met someone who seems like they're always performing? Like they've spent so much time trying to look and sound a certain way that you start to wonder if they even remember who they really are anymore? That's exactly the vibe people are getting from Meghan Markle right now, and things are spiraling. This isn't just gossip-level drama. It's front-page news, celebrity takedowns, and losing brand deals kind of messy. And at the center of it all is one man, Piers Morgan. Whether you love him or hate him, Piers has built his entire career on stirring controversy, and Meghan Markle has been one of his favorite targets for years. But this time, he didn't just post a shady tweet or roll his eyes on a panel. He went full-on attack mode live on TV, calling her out so harshly that even some of her usual defenders started shifting uncomfortably in their seats.
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. Truth be told, what she just did is complete and utter garbage.
And what triggered it? A podcast episode. Not a royal announcement. Not a major documentary, just one of Meghan's softly lit, whisper-voiced, emotionally packaged podcast moments. Except this time something about it pushed Piers over the edge.
It's one long rendition of all their greatest whinges and a load of self-congratulatory nonsense. Harry and Meghan sold their royal souls to become reality TV stars.
He called the whole thing fake, not just an "no, she's being dramatic" kind of way, but in a "this is a full-blown performance" kind of way.
Yeah, what has he done with this Netflix series? He's used his mother to sell it. Could there be a more grotesque exploitation or a more hypocritical one?
He said she's putting on a show, playing a part, crafting a character, and not doing it particularly well, but then he went after the tears, saying they were missing, that she claimed to cry during a heartfelt moment. But if you zoom in, not a single tear is in sight. And that unlocked the internet like it was the first day of a true crime documentary, with people digging up an old clip of Meghan from her Suits days where she joked about being able to cry on command, saying "left I go" with a snap of her fingers, summoning a tear like she had a remote for her tear ducts, which was funny at the time but not so funny now, because suddenly every emotional pause in her podcast, every voice crack, every blink was under the microscope as people asked was it real or rehearsed? And the more they looked, the more it felt scripted, like she was less a podcast host and more an actress playing one, with flawless lighting, a voice so soothing it bordered on eerie, and guests who always praised her and wrapped up with some version of "You're so brave, Meghan," which didn't feel like a conversation but a one-woman show. And then there was the title Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, a little signature on a thank you gift, which might seem innocent. But remember, she's not supposed to be using that title anymore. That was part of stepping back from royal duties, yet there it was, printed on stationery and placed right in the middle of a podcast episode, which critics took as proof that she still wants the crown without the responsibilities, still clinging to the glamour, the prestige, the royal label, just not the rules that come with it. Piers didn't hold back there either. He called it manipulation, said Meghan wants the sympathy of being a victim, the glamour of being a duchess, and the control of being a media mogul. And even if you think Piers is just being bitter, you can't ignore how people reacted. Social media exploded, commentators jumped in, memes flew, think pieces dropped, and through it all, the same question kept coming up: what's real and what's performative? Because at this point, the lines are so blurred that even Meghan's most devoted fans started asking, are we watching a woman telling her truth or someone who's mastered the art of telling a truth that sells? Brands started noticing the shift. And one by one, they quietly began backing away. No press releases, no dramatic exits, just cold silence where there once were offers. Spotify had once signed Meghan and Harry in a headline-grabbing deal, hoping to ride the wave of royal rebellion and public sympathy. But what they got instead was a glossy, overproduced season that fizzled out faster than a forgotten influencer collab, with some executives reportedly calling it all polish, no pulse. They wanted real stories, something gripping, and instead got a parade of guests fawning over Meghan's resilience while she smiled into her ring light. Then came whispers and Hollywood producers murmured about creative control issues. PR insiders started using phrases like narrative overkill and emotional fatigue because Meghan wanted to own every detail: how she looked, how she sounded, what questions were allowed. And while that might work if you're a seasoned director, when you're new to media, it can come off as overbearing. She wasn't just protecting her image, she was managing it like a full-time job, and it didn't help that the same criticisms started echoing from places she couldn't control, as social media sleuths picked apart every podcast frame, every documentary moment, the crying clip, the voice shifts, the wardrobe choices. Everything started feeling calculated. Even the lighting in her raw emotional interviews looked like a Vogue shoot, and people started asking, if everything's curated down to the chili oil in the gift basket, What part of this is actually raw? One viral tweet summed it up. She talks about being vulnerable while her makeup is camera ready and the chicken coop's been power washed. Harsh maybe, but it resonated. Even her attempts at humility started sounding like PR scripts. In one clip, Megan tearfully spoke about being overwhelmed with pride for a guest, said she had full body chills, said she could cry but the moment felt so choreographed, with her voice dropping to a whisper, lighting catching her cheekbone just right, a pause perfectly timed, no tear, just a soft blink, a camera cut, and boom commercial. Critics didn't just question the sincerity, they questioned whether she'd rehearsed it. Meanwhile, her opponents didn't have to dig deep, they just had to hold up a mirror, and the biggest mirror came from South Park, with an animated takedown of two characters clearly modeled after Harry and Meghan, marching around demanding privacy while promoting their brand on every platform, which hit harder than any op-ed. It didn't name them, but it didn't need to. The message was loud, clear, and devastating. You can't complain about the spotlight while setting up your own lighting. Public opinion began to shift, not just against her narrative, but against her authenticity. And this wasn't backlash from people who hated her from the start. This came from fans who once rooted for her, who had seen her as the bold outsider, taking on a centuries-old monarchy, but who now started to feel duped, not because she told her story, but because every chapter started to feel like it was being written for effect. The criticism stopped being about one podcast or moment and turned into a conversation about image versus reality, about a woman who said she wanted out of the royal machine only to build a new one that was even more curated, more emotionally packaged, and maybe even more controlling. Meghan's next moves were meant to be her redemption arc. Rumors swirled about a lifestyle brand, whispers of a cooking show, maybe even a wellness empire to rival Goop, and the idea was simple: pivot from controversy and rebuild the image through something softer, friendlier, less polarizing. But the problem wasn't the format, it was the baggage, because every new project, no matter how light or harmless on the surface, now carried invisible weight. People weren't just watching her content, they were analyzing it, waiting for the mask to slip. Even a Goodwill visit became a lightning rod. Her trip to Nigeria, which should have been framed as cultural appreciation, was instead accused of being a Netflix-funded photo op, and pictures of Meghan in traditional attire went viral not for the fashion but for the questions they raised. Was this genuine outreach or another calculated PR play? Critics pounced on the optics, the hand-picked moments, the staged smiles, the glossy photos. Nothing felt spontaneous, and that's Meghan Markle's new reality. Authenticity isn't about what you say anymore, it's about what people believe without being told. Meanwhile, inside Hollywood, the red flags kept piling up. Producers backed away, executives hesitated. Calls that once would have been returned in hours now took days, even weeks. The shine hadn't vanished because Meghan wasn't famous, she still was, but because her name had become unpredictable. And in an industry built on perception, unpredictability is poison. One former assistant reportedly said she wasn't difficult in a diva sense, but in the must control everything sense. Every script, every frame, every piece of feedback had to align with her narrative. And while that's not inherently wrong, when people feel like they're part of a marketing machine instead of a creative collaboration, it gets tiring fast. Piers Morgan, of course, stayed loud, but by now, he wasn't the story, he was the amplifier, and his voice, though dramatic and divisive, simply echoed what others were already starting to say. Meghan's problem wasn't Piers anymore, it was erosion. Erosion of trust, of credibility, of connection. And Harry? He had his own storm memoirs, lawsuits, public statements, putting everything out there, bearing his soul in every direction, while Meghan seemed to be recalibrating. Going quiet, not in a retreat kind of way, but like she was waiting for the right moment to strike. Her team leaked whispers about new plans, but this time the response wasn't excitement, it was skepticism. The real question had grown beyond just Meghan's next podcast or docuseries. It became a question of identity. Was she going to keep walking the path of image-first storytelling, of flawless lighting and emotion on cue, or was she finally going to let go of the script? Because at some point, the audience shifted, they stopped rooting and started observing, watching every blink, every pause, every perfectly timed "I'm proud of you" moment, and wondering who it was really for: her guests, her fans, or the mirror. Meghan isn't fading, she's too savvy for that, but the chapter she's in now doesn't come with applause. It comes with side eyes, long silences, and a quiet demand for something she hasn't delivered yet: truth without polish. And unless she finds a way to give that, the reinventions will keep coming, but the belief won't.